And we're live. Hey there, y'all. This is your Naked Santa. No, not really. But boy, is it ever hot. Woo-wee. I'm not totally naked. I'm just bare chested. I never understood. And again, I have to start off this with hi, this is your Kriat Sensei Al Bob. And I am telling you welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. That's our channel. And I invite you to enjoy the entertainment, right? And so it's been a hot one. It's been in the upper 90s last week. And that's because we have this big, heavy low right over the center. Now, the United States has just experienced really intense rains, like from January. Well, if we want to talk about from last November to just a couple of weeks ago, we've had snow and rain and just we are soggy. So then this heat comes in and turns us into one big humid sponge. So that's where we are in the physicality of what's going on. But the thing that I'm taking a look at is I told that story last night about the girls from the Ukraine, right? And how they were played, and how the hidden hand brought in the propaganda media. And all I have to do is go look at the Tavistock Institute, which are the guys, Freud's nephew and a few others, who invented modern advertising / propaganda. And part of that crew was Goebbels. He took it and ran with that, and that's what we're having here. But, if you read Noam Chomsky, he has this great book called Creating Consent and Manufacturing Consent, really. And that's exactly what advertising does. It manufactures consent. Oh, your pits smell, then you need this. Your hair is that color, then you need that. Your teeth are this, then you need that. And then you get into, big pharma. You just watch news. Every commercial is, and this, lazy jackass pill here, will, get your lazy jackass working just right. But, the byproducts of it are your hair will fall out, you'll go blind, your teeth will fall out, you'll go insane, you'll commit suicide, and you'll kill lots of other people. But we've told you about it, so now we're not responsible, even though we created this pill and it doesn't do anything except make us billions of dollars. So if you see this all around you, and there was a great film called They Live, and it basically said that a slimy bunch of aliens or devils or dimensionals or whatever came here and started to play the human race. And, they took over. And, this guy, what I loved about the movie, it was like all the stars were WWF wrestlers. Roddy Piper was our hero. And so he's just, kind of a road dog, and he kind of takes the train into the cart into LA, and he kind of finds himself a laboring job, and then he kind of finds himself a kind of campsite where a bunch of other homeless people are, and there's a church there feeding them, and so he's hanging out there, and he's getting he's got a few bucks in his pocket, and he's takes a stroll into town and gets something to eat and checks things out, and he comes back just the right time where he's far enough back, and he sees the police come in and basically bulldoze the church and the camp, right? And not just clean it out, but bulldoze meaning run over the people with bulldozers and kill them and shoot them and just wipe them out. Like kill 300 or 400 people right there downtown LA, and no one seems to notice. No, there are no And they're right next to a TV news station, and they don't catch it. And he stays back, and he's whoa, 20 minutes earlier they'd be running over. That's my tent that's under the tread. So he waits. They leave. He kind of, as the sun is rising, he kind of picks through things, and he goes into the church, and it's riddled with bullet holes and blood stains. And he goes down in the basement. He finds this kind of closet, opens up, and all these boxes of sunglasses. So he takes a box that has about 20, 30 sunglasses, and he, sneaks out, and he's like, got this box under his arm, and he's like in an alley, and he kind of puts them on, and he looks around, and he sees the billboards and signs and advertising. I mean, he doesn't have it on. It has it for, car wash and toothpaste and cigarettes and this and that. Puts them on, and he sees consume. Everything is black and white when he's got the magic sunglasses on. Consume, buy, obey. Mass produce. Generate. Have more kids so we can make them slaves. And he's like freaking out. And then every 12th person isn't a human being. It's one of these slimy creatures, right? And he was looking around, and there's drones in the sky, looking at everything, and everybody is being observed. When I was at Cornell in '91, at the Math Center, which was the Darth Vader building that was put up by DARPA to work on software, allegedly, to do, Star Wars, to be able to hit ICBM with another missile, that takes a lot of math. Well, that's not what they were doing. They were figuring out 5G and, social media and, a surveillance economy, which China has right now. They got cameras everywhere and got everyone's face, on ID. And if you do something wrong, they got you. And, in our country, we have a credit rating. In their country, they have this thing called a social rating. So, you jaywalk. That's a little black mark. You go out your back door rather than your front door because they want everybody coming out the front door so they can see who's leaving and when. But if you sneak out the back door, they might miss you. That's another little, black mark. And you get enough black marks, you doesn't matter. You could got some money in the bank, but if you got enough black marks and you want to take an airplane to another part of China, they say, sorry, you can't get on the airplane. What? I got plenty of money. No, sorry, your credit rating your social rating is down. So, you got a few more things, and now you got to take the train. Now you can't take the bullet train. You got to take the slow train. You got a few more you can't take the slow train. You got to take the bus. Then you can't take the nice bus. You got to take the bus where the people smell and got goats in there. Then you can't take the bus. You got to ride your bike. You can't ride your bike. You got to walk, and then they take your shoes. And that's what's coming our way. And, within 5 years, no one's going to own a car because they're going to make everything, autonomous. There's a place nearby here called Pulaski where Volvo has their big tractor trailer. They're the second largest tractor trailer, manufacturer in the world. And they have stopped making diesel and gas engines and gas trucks. They're all electric because you don't need a train. You don't need gear shift. All you need is a rheostat. And the torque on a synchronous motor is 1,000 times more than a gearbox. And so, and way more efficient. And once everybody's riding an autonomous vehicle and there are no humans driving, it'll be a lot safer. This is true, but that'll be the sales thing. But you won't be able to get in your car. Now, you'll be able to hit a little app on your phone, and that Uber or Lyft will be right there. But if your social score is down, No, it won't be there. Sorry. You won't be able to go anywhere, you know? And when your smartphone becomes your wallet, like it is in India, they took money away about 4 years ago. And that's like a country with 1.2 billion people, and everyone's using their smartphone. They kind of, wave it in front of the sensor when they're at the store. And in China, they got, because everyone's face is, recognizable by the system. And that's why they are going so deep into AI. And because, the Politburo thinks, oh, someday humans might be a little upset with us. So we will replace the lawyers, the doctors, the police, everything with AI. And so now they don't even, in China, they don't even need their smartphone. You go into a store, your face is your wallet. You bring your little smart bag with you, and you throw things in it, and you walk out the door. You don't even have to. There will be no humans in the store. There'll be robots stacking the shelves, and So if you put the stuff in the bag and you walk out, and your social score and your credit score aren't right, and you will be hit with a death ray and incinerated. And we're looking at this 4, 5, 10 years from now. Another thing, in 10 years, 30% of the world's population will not have drinking water. And part of that 30% will be in the United States and the developed countries, because it already is. Look at Flint, Michigan. And there are a lot of other Flint, Michigans. Asheville, North Carolina is one of them. Asheville's water kills, again, always remember, this show is for entertainment's sake only. And don't believe anything I say. With that said, Asheville's water kills about 30,000 people a year, because back in the day, when Asheville was the Paris of the South, they borrowed a lot of money in the 1920s and redid everything. And one of them was level out the city, because it used to be built in a mountain range, and to put in water and sewer lines. And just as everything was getting done, after they finished the tunnel in the mountain, and after they finished building downtown City Plaza, and after they finished leveling up the city and putting in sewers and water lines, the Great Depression came, and the city couldn't pay, period. Bingo. Sorry. And so everyone had to take a bath. And the guy who was the contractor for the sewer and water lines was so pissed, he burnt the documentation where the sewer and water lines are. So the city of Asheville has no idea where about 80% of its sewer and water lines, and they're made out of lead and terracotta. So over the years, as the mountains shift this way and that way, those pipes have been slightly ruptured and cracked. And along with our drinking water, the sewage has been sleuthing into the drinking water of Asheville. And now they couldn't do anything about it because they had no money. They did not. Why Asheville is so groovy is because they did not finish paying off their depression debt until 1996. And then they did, right? And then the real estate guys came in and bought up everything cheap and turned it into the hipster jungle that it is. And so their money is about tourists coming in. So people come from Omaha and Ohio, and they have a little, their immune system's a little wonky. Well, they drink water. No one tells them don't drink the water. Well, these guys do. And they go home and they die. They don't die. The 30,000 don't die in Asheville. And the only thing that the city of Asheville could do from 1929 to 1996 was add more chlorine and more other really noxious, deadly chemicals to the water to try and kill the bugs. All they did was kill the weak bugs and make the stronger bugs stronger. Well, this kind of interfacing of our infrastructures collapse is what's happening. And then, our good buddy Donnie Trump gives $1 trillion gift to the corporations. And we go into a trillion, when Obama, which I was never a big fan of, left, their deficit was about 160 billion. Right now, it's a trillion. 1 year, it went to $1 trillion. So you're looking at so by within 10 years, the largest thing in our budget will be paying off the interest of the money. And why Donald Trump is always so in the face of the Fed is that he wants them to lower the interest rates, at least in the next few years, so he doesn't look that bad. Because if they don't, lower it by at least 2 notches, they, by the time he runs for president in 17 months, the third largest thing on our budget is going to be our deficit. And that makes it hard to borrow. So to keep up that tax break for the rich and the corporates, it's going to be tough. So that's why you hear guys like Graham go, well, we have to start looking at these things called entitlements, like Social Security. That's not an entitlement. That is, you pay into it, Your Medicare, it's not an entitlement. You pay into it. It's an insurance policy. And it goes on and on and on. And these guys are, taken apart. Donald Trump was put there because he is a disruption. We're watching him talk about the 4 girls in Congress, and they're taking the government apart. And I'm living with it. I'm watching, food stamps and food banks just going under. And the healthcare is going under. Luckily, I've gotten myself, alive. But I could have lost my jaw 4 months ago. I lost all my teeth instead. And because I have neuropathy, diabetes, there are a lot of things wrong with me. I keep them in check. But being a homeless guy living out in the woods, sometimes I'm not looking at it too closely. Plus, I have to come all the way here to get relatively good medical care. There's nothing in the Appalachians. All they do is give you OxyContin. So that's where we're looking at. And the other very interesting little thing is that there, as we get closer and closer to the presidential election, there are all these what do they call them? Where they go and ask people questions and then they turn it into numbers, And as I keep telling you, my first time I took a statistical analysis course, the teachers, I'm going to teach you how to lie with numbers. But I made my living for many a year looking at trends, right? So the major trend in America is that it is turning black and brown, right? And the white European is dwindling away, right? It is not, by 2030, only about 18% of our country is going to be white, but they will mostly be the rich people who own everything. So Donald Trump is playing to xenophobia. He's playing to the worst devils of the American psyche. And what's a problem is in this tenuous moment of the next 3 to 5 years, 68 million Americans are aging white guys who just barely got through high school. And they don't like, what do they used to call them? Uppity black, especially they surely don't like uppity black women or people of color or anybody who's smarter than they are and makes them feel inferior, because back in the day of Jim Crow, they didn't have to worry about that. So, and the really sad thing is that guys like Billy Boy and Lock Her Up Girl and Obama, or Saddam, or whatever they call them, all of those Democrats, basically were, became Nixon / Rockefeller Republicans. And the Republicans today, like I just heard what's his name, Rush Limbaugh, go on about, somebody asked him about, what were the base, um, you know, dynamics of the Republican Party? Wasn't it, not having deficits and, family values and moral responsibility and, you know, Pinhead said, no, no, no. If you believe that the Republicans were serious about, physical responsibility, no, nobody believes in physical responsibility. Really? And then he went on, and family values. It's an individual thing. It's freedom. And how much money the stock market's making. That's family values. Really? Um, they impeached Billy Boy for just a dalliance with a 25-year-old girl who wanted to do it. She was sent there to do it, and it was all scripted. When Billy Boy said, okay, we're going to make you president, but what's going to happen? About a year or two into it, we're going to basically out you for your sexual proclivities with this young girl here, and it's going to waste, uh, 1.5 presidencies of yours. But while you're doing that, you're going to be getting rid of the Price-Anderson Act. You're going to be going global. You're going to be sending all the jobs to Mexico, and if we weren't talking about your Willy, we would never be able to do all of this, right? So everything is scripted. Nothing is off script. Do not believe that the hidden hand is not pulling all the strings. They are. But all through history, again, I used to make my living at looking at these long-term trends, like billion-year long terms. And once you start looking that far back, you realize there were other cultures, other things going on before we even showed up. So, the big asteroid that hit in Mexico and wiped pretty much everyone out, again, was scripted, meaning it was a, what do they call it? In warfare, when the innocents get killed, collateral damage. There was a gigantic planet in the middle of our solar system, which was the capital of it all. And Mars had people on it, and there were people on all the planets. And then there was one big heck of a war. And it was just what, Lucas's, Star Wars, exactly it, the Empire and all of that, and the Death Star. Our moon is the Death Star, and it cruised into our solar system and took out the capital planet, and Earth was just a soggy kind of wetlands where the dinosaurs were hanging out, right? And this asteroid, wango, right? It and other chunks of that planet where the other, and the Orc belt is like the leftover stuff that got, broomed over there. And Mars has this gigantic scar across the whole, you know, middle part of it. I mean, 100 times wider than the Grand Canyon, and it goes the full length of the frigging planet. It almost cut the planet in half, and it blew the atmosphere off, and what happened to Venus, and all of those things happened from this war. There were civilizations, intellects way before that. And go read Joseph Campbell if you want to know this, and go read Plato, Socrates, and Euclid, right? Those Greeks, right? And if you can dig up, Mr. Apple's hidden documents, and if you go, the guy, who tells the future through his little sonnets, those were all coded. I mean, this stuff is right in our face. The Bible is coded. The the movie, the the Da Vinci Code. I mean, this is all true, and everything that's said pretty much is true. Fake news. It's been fake from the beginning. Mr. Hearst and Mr. Pulitzer owned. There wasn't a war that those two guys didn't start. And every war we've had, there's no righteous war. There is no, no. The wars are there to make money for, Mr. Lockheed and Boeing and Martin, and they own us so much that they can put out faulty products like Boeing's, 737 Max and the Dreamliner. I mean, so 68 million Americans are down with racism, are down with everything that Donnie says. He lies right live on TV. But it doesn't matter. And the pundits wring their hands because that's part of the script. But the beauty of all of this, if you study these long-term trends, is that there is a thing called the ghost in the machine. There's a thing called the unexpected consequence. And that's why we're still here. I kind of bailed from being the scholar to being, the scholar guy who works, for the corporations, right? A friend of mine I met, and he was a really sharp political operative, right? And he just got tired of it because he thought he could do some good. He was going to learn how to play the game really well, and then he thought he could do some good. And it didn't happen, right? So he picked up on another thing, and he was making some money, and he's saving every nickel, and he's getting out of Dodge, right? And he's going to go someplace where he and his family can lay low. So we were talking, and he goes, Al, I'm I got my card here saying that I am a operative, and I've known you for now 10 years, and you always know what's going on. What do you work for, the CIA, NSA? I said, I work for people who are above those guys. Those guys are chumps. They're just, part of and I don't work for anybody, I don't work for anybody who doesn't need me more than I need them. And after I died in that plate of spaghetti, and it took me 5 years to get to this place of being, pretty healthy, the unraveling had already started. AI has pretty much taken over control of everything I used to do. So, all I could do is go out into the woods and eat bark and write novels. That's about it. And then I discovered this YouTube thing. Hey there, fishy. And I said, I'm going to look for a few good folk, see if they can drop pebbles into the pond like I do. And, I've got about 300 of you guys, maybe a few more, maybe 320. And they're about, 70,000 watching. They don't get involved. They don't subscribe. They don't do any of the above. And they might do, but whatchamacallit, YouTube, they don't get rid of us. They just keep us on the down low, which is okay. I'm down with it because, yeah, no kidding. I mean, haven't you noticed? I'm the naked Santa Claus, but just the top part of me. Guys can walk around without a shirt, but girls can't. That's I lived in parts of the world where where everyone could walk around naked if they wanted to. Download from all the retarded. Now we're not gonna judge anybody. No judging, no wrenching. You know, we're all part of all our relations. We're all here to serve love's co-creation. So now I do say every day at least 50 times, that frickin' moron. You know, retarded. I try. Yeah, I try not to use that word. Fracking moron. Zero, tell me that from now on, instead of retarded, you will use fracking moron, right? Because that's so much more elegant and descriptive, where I think retarded is more just, oh, mean. Okay? that sound like a plan, Zero? Yeah, right? Fracking moron. My grandma used to say that. But see, I'm a little more PC. I say fracking instead of the one word she used to use. And she was, a person who was elegant, eloquent, and she was the one who taught me epistemology, and that you use the right word, not just any word, the right word. And so if you go to XRATTED and you read my stuff, and I get a lot of comments on my The Dude Awake 42 Gmail. Well, you just can't spell, and your grammar's atrocious. No, moron. What it is I'm trying to shamanically break the spell of spelling. And people don't realize that grammar and spelling were the Tower of Babel, that it blew up and threw everyone asunder, and then we all had different languages. That's spelling and grammar. So you break spelling and grammar. Now I encode it. So when you read it, you got to read it like, what the heck is this guy saying? So you read it again. And you go, what the heck is this? And then you read it again. And by the time you read it the sixth time, the shamanic thing has gone on in your head to the point where, oh my God, this is what he's saying, And that's how I write it, in these little chunks. I don't expect you to just zip through 20, 30, 40, 50 pages. No, if you get through, 2 paragraphs a night, that's good going. And some of my stuff is, a friend of mine was reading, he's an editor, and he comments on my stuff on my, he gets a hold of me either through messaging or through the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. And he was saying, it's really interesting. Another friend of ours said that I was like James Joyce on acid. And he goes, that's true. But what I've seen about your writing is that you have thick pieces, where you have to read like sentence by sentence 6 times. Thick, right? Then you have, what was the term you used? Slick. That it's like you're zipping down a slide, right? And you can read 20, 30 pages in less than an hour and get something out of it. And so I'm going to read it 15 times. There are still paragraphs within that slick part that it's like, you go into, it's like, I had a really good friend who was an Olympic skier, and she was really good. And she was flying down this hill, and she came, and she was a downhill racer. Those people just go for broke, right? So she's zipping down there, and she comes around a corner, and there's no snow. It's dirt. They didn't, prepare the sun hit it or whatever. But there was a big patch of dirt and rocks, and she was like, and she flew through the air and went uncontrollably into the base of the concrete foundation of one of the towers of the gondolas. And so she was doing about 80 miles an hour, and she hit this concrete thing. So she was, turned into mush, right? And, and that was in the 1970s, 80s. And they put her back together, kind of. And but every 10 or 15 years, they'd have to take her apart and put we put aluminum in, but now let's put some titanium. Anyway. And so she had a perspective on things like nobody else. Because, I died 6 times. She died 50 times. And she became a doctor. She's not going to be her real raison d'etre was to go fast as a skier. That was not going to happen anymore. So she became a doctor and a surgeon, and she went up to India, right? And so she had a really good perspective, because she was a girl from Massachusetts that went to India and became Indian, and so she's another one of my friends who has perspectives on everything. With the advent of the internet, she found me again, and there were a lot of old friends that found me again. I thought you were dead. I keep hearing you're dying all the time. What's up with that? I said, well, my masters want to talk to me, and I don't listen until they, put me in a position where I die, and then I'm in front of them, and they, tell me I'm doing a great job, and so go back, and then I have to deal with the consequences of my slackness, my being a slacker. And okay, I got it. So they throw me in this place where I have to do the right thing. I can't. My hedonist lifestyle can't do that again. My hiding in the ivy covered halls can't do that anymore. Being the disco dude, can't. Sorry. What I am now is your sensei Al Bob. Your griot. And so that's what I'm doing. And I live on. I start out with $600, but after they take 128 from my Medicaid and another 100 for the medicines and another 100 for my car insurance and another 100 for my phone and other and sundries of that nature, I'm like left with $280 to live on a month. And I do that pretty good, and I did, getting food stamps, they only give me $70, really generous. And, they've had a food bank, but those are being taken away, to pay the $1 trillion tax break for the rich and the corporate. So we're heading for some really interesting times, but because I'm here to serve, love's co-creation by being your griot sensei Al Bob, showing you how to throw the pebble of love into the pond of our collective, all our relations, I'm taken care of. I'm not worrying about it. I'm not like, oh, how am I going to pay my bills? Blah, 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 blah. No, no, oh, I got a cold, I'm going to die. No, I am dying. My brother had a wife and she had lung problems, right? She's a singer, so, she used her lungs and she still, you would perform. Now, her lungs got messed up because when she was young and she was in all those nightclubs and everybody was smoking cigarettes and she smoked too, she didn't get cancer, but, her lungs got totally whacked. But you looked at her, she looked fine. But, and my brother said, oh, she's really sick, da, 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 da. Now, I knew what she had, so I knew she was really sick. But it was, and she used to get pissed off when people go, oh, you're just faking it, And what she had, I worked in hospitals, so I saw people who had it. And it's probably the worst way to go because what happens is you're fine. And then all of a sudden you can't breathe. It's like you just can't breathe. And you're, and if you get the EpiPen, but sometimes you can't get the EpiPen. And for people who are poor but not poor enough, that EpiPen is $1,200. My brother, could afford that. She had 2 or 3 in her pocketbook at all times. But there are a lot of people who are like that, like people who are on dialysis. The machine keeps them alive. But I used to be, again, I was a technologist in hospitals. So, I worked on CAT scan machines, and I basically worked on the power sources for everything, right? That was really my thing. And, but at the cafeteria, it would be all us technologists sitting over there. It was like at high school, the jocks over there, the dweebs over there, the mean girls there, Anyway, so we would that, and everyone would treat us nice because everybody needed us, right? Now, no one knew what the heck I did, because everything I did was like, everything those other guys did were in boxes that these people used. Me, the things I did were like behind the walls, so, but when things went awry, I was the guy who, I would have to jump out with my Superman cape. So, I have seen every aspect of almost everything. And that's why I am where I am right now. I'm here to serve you guys, help you. That's like why last night I did that little flashy light thing, because you guys go interstate. You do that nice. You like the fun and games of taking the tour, but very few of you practice it. Very few of you are disciplined. Very few of you, I call you adepts, but you have to step up because things are they've always been weird. This ain't any worse than it has been. I'm like 70 something years old. I know I've experienced enough. And as I was telling John was going on about, this, that, and the other thing. I said, well, I was younger. I was like, I'm really sick now. And it's, I've been sick my whole freaking life. It was just different times. I said, screw this. I'm not going to be sick anymore. And that's really the secret to life is your intent. In the story of Buddha by the side of the road, glowing in his beautifulness, and the tourist stops him and goes, what are you, God? And Buddha says, no, what are you, a magician? What are you? And Buddha says, I'm awake. Well, every time I get in trouble, it's just because I kind of get distracted, right? And, I kind of, put the snooze button on the fact that I'm here, and I'm, Sensei, Griot Sensei Al Bob. Those are all kind of titles, Griot, Sensei, Griot storyteller, Sensei teacher, Owl, I don't like to say wise one, but that's kind of what it's called. And you can't take that name yourself. It has to be given to you. And, Sensei Al Bob. And Bob is the translation from Sumerian of love's co-creation, servant to love's co-creation. So if you're Bob, you're a servant to love's co-creation. So I'm your Griot Sensei Al Bob, right? And I've been my whole life. So when I was a little kid, really sick, died at birth, kept dying virtually or getting really sick every birthday I had. Every year I would get ridiculously sick, right? And survive, right? And it wasn't until I was 10 when again I died again, and I was in this hospital, and Catholic hospital, and these nuns were torturing me, and this one nun came up to me while I was like in delirium and just kind of stuck her monstrous face in mine, and I thought she was a monster, and I clocked her one. So when I broke the fever and came out of it, I was attached to the bed, with manacles, and I had a Hannibal Lecter mask so I couldn't bite anybody, and I couldn't talk. So they had left me in my own urine and feces, right? And when I was 10, I said to myself, that's it. I'm never getting sick again. I'm not doing this. I'm tired of this, right? So that's when I never got sick again, right? But it was my intent. And my masters on other planes keep putting me into situations, just turning the little dials on me to, okay, he needs to do this, okay. So when I was a wee little one, between 3, this is one reason why my grandma took care of me. I had a stutter, but people didn't know I stuttered because I never spoke. I listened. And no stuttering is really just psychological. I mean, you can have certain, physical things wrong with your palate and stuff, and you can have a stutter, but I didn't have that. And so I never said anything, but I was listening. I mean, really listening. And my grandma taught me that. And then when I went off to the Maryknoll priests, they really, really, really turned me into the scholar that I am, So one of the things they taught me was don't open your mouth unless you know the answer. And you can, with an erudite tone, without being uppity, explain it to everybody. So, instead of, the stupid folk, you can enlighten them. And that's why I am your sensei. I'm just your freaking teacher, right? So the way I got over my stutter was I would never open my mouth until I could speak like I speak today, That's why my grandma was so tight on me about etymology, picking every word precisely, right? And so we are all a matter of this salad bowl of our existence, all these different flavors that we're on. But when you are like me, I am, so I'm, your Griot Sensei Al Bob, there's another little title in there, Lucky Bastard, right? And lucky bastards are people who shoot to Earth like a meteor, right? And they are sent here. And they're not an angel or a demon or any of those kind of parts of the hegemony. No, they're a free agent, a loving, living, uh, lucky bastard. And no matter what happens to us, we luck out. you know. Now we may not know it. We may, and the more you just accept what's going on and take it and look for, take the lemon and turn it into lemonade. Um, that's the storyline. So that's what I'm trying to teach you guys, right? How to be, what the adept is that person who serves loves co-creation. The first time I was really tapped as an adept was when I was with my sensei in Putney, Vermont. Because I showed up, and again, I didn't come in. I'm a doctor. I'm here to, just become the great, like Doctor Strange, right? And that wasn't me. I was there to learn. So I didn't say anything. And I went back to my scholarly self for just listening. And by that time, I had enough really great teachers and masters like Madame Olga Kluber, who really taught me about intent. And you don't do anything half-ass, like Yoda says, don't try, do. And Madame Olga Kluber really was my taskmaster at that one, right? She showed me a whole bunch of things. And it was like Luke trying to, float in the air, lifting boulders, with his mind. That's the kind of stuff she had me do, and but when I met Sensei, my intent was already there. And so I wasn't there to, show off or be special. Or my thing was to absorb as much as I could because I was sent there by my master, my teacher, my boss, my colonel from Fort Hamilton. He's the one who sent me there. He knew Sensei, and he said, "Hey." And so from day one, because he had gotten some old lady had donated him this farm, and it was a trash heap, meaning, no one had worked it or fixed it or done anything to it, um, for like 30 years. This lady didn't live on it. She, kind of was part of the family. It was left to her, 40 years before she died, and she lived in Florida, and then she met Sensei when she went to Japan and tried to study with him. And then when she put that, he said that he wanted to come to America and bring his teachings. So in her will, she willed him this farm, because she had nothing to do with it. She wasn't going to sell it, wasn't worth anything per se at that time. And so when I went there, my colonel said, and bring your toolbox, because the place is going to need fixing. So I got there, and we all kind of got there at the same time. And Sensei was just kind of in his orange robe, looking around, and the people who were impressed with it, who's this guy? What are we doing here? I thought I was going to learn Eastern medicine, and who's the clown in the, he had a shaved head, and he was really tall, and he was wearing an orange suit, Anyway, I had driven up in my, Datsun B210 that had no floor, and that I had gotten from my friend who ran the in New York City, they had called the car pound. If they tow your car, they tow it to the car pound, and you got to pay a lot of money to get your car back. Well, a lot of people have crappy cars, and they, instead of spending $1,700 to get a $200 car back, they just leave it there. So at the end of the month, my friend would have auctions. He would buy all these cars for like $1 or $2, and then he'd have an auction. and he's my buddy. So I would come in before the auction, and I would say, "Okay, let me find a car. I'll give you $200. Show me the $200 zone," and he would show me cars, and I would give him $200, and he would, put in the computer, me and my social, and spit out a title, a registration, and one of those cardboard um, license plates. And I would drive that car around and just every month change the number of the month there. I got very good at that. And I would keep those, vehicles until they crashed or burned or was stolen or, got towed away again. And I would go back to him and, there'd be a zillion tickets on it. And I would say, nope, nope. But he'd let me take all my stuff out of the car. So before I went to Vermont, I went and got and I didn't have a driver's license. I would just buy these cars. You could legally buy the car, have a title, registration, and a cardboard license plate, not a problem. So I had that, and so I had my little bag of tricks, some clothes, and my tools. And when I got there, and I drove up, and the other people were like delivered by cabs and this. It was one other person with a car, and they had a station wagon. They were like, yeah, station wagon, and it was, they didn't have, vans yet. It might have been a real van. Anyway, there was two of us that had vehicle. I had my B210, and my friend had his van. Anyway, so the first thing I did, I got out and I went around with a pad of all the things that were wrong. The plumbing is this, and the water doesn't do that, and the electricity, forget about that. Needs totally, roof has leaks, da da da. And I went around. I didn't say, okay, everyone, we got to start working. I just started doing it, right? And I went in and saw what kind of tools they had, and the things they had some really great rakes. They had a scythe, and they had a book on how to sharpen blades. I said, well, okay. They had all the tools to do it. So I sharpened that scythe, and I started cutting the grass around the farmhouse, around the barn, around the other things, and then made paths because I knew I lived in Vermont before. They got some serious ticks. If you leave long grass, it's going to be bad. So they had no, power tools, or they had no power. But they did have a service entrance, and they had a meter there that was still on. And I said, well, but everything else, forget about it. And there was no lock on the meter, so I pulled out that, and I kind of, looked around for stuff that could replace the wires going from the meter to the fuse box, and, started making a few things work. And then I went to, I did all of that, and got water working and a toilet to work and a few lights in the house, and that was like in the first 6 hours, while everyone else was like, what do I do here? Blah, blah, blah. Nobody, and Sensei was just standing there with his prayer beads in his hands and his sleeves, and he just watched me do everything. Well, everybody else was like, I'm head of thoracic surgery, and what am I doing here? And I just went to work, right? Just because I had the right intent. I came here to serve because my boss, my mentor, my colonel said, this guy is amazing. I met him in Japan, and he survived Hiroshima as a little kid. And I said, and he goes, he taught me so much. And I wrote him a letter when he was still in Japan heading this way. And I said, I have a Padawan adept, a pre-adept, right? And I did all that. And then I went in the house, and I found the nicest room, and the nicest bed. And I got the water working, and that's when Judy came in, and she goes, I've been watching you, but the minute you got here, you started getting things working. You were great. I like you. She liked me. I said, she goes, what can I do to help you? I mean, I didn't jump in because I had no idea what the heck you were doing. I just saw you do it. You made the electric work and the water work. And how did you do that? And I said, I'll teach you. Not a problem. But we're at a place where I do need a helper, and I like you too. Our little energies were, because she's really pretty, really smart, really everything, and lots of fun. And she wasn't full of herself, right? And she was a head nurse in Boston, right? Anyway, so I said, well, sensei is our sensei. Do you know what that word means? And she goes, no, what sensei means? I know it's Japanese. I said, well, it's a word for um, teacher. But in Japan, sensei is probably the most revered um, person of the society, right? In America, teachers, we treat them like crap, but if you're a sensei, I mean, they have instructors, they have professors, but sensei is so. He's our sensei. We have to take care of him. We have to honor him. We have to. This is the hambu. She goes, "What's hambu?" I said, "Well, it's a Japanese word that it, it doesn't translate so much as home as temple of the soul of knowing." And she goes, "Oh, I like that." So I said, "So this is the nicest room. It's got a toilet, a bathroom right there, and you know, I'm going to make sure that works and that it's cleaned up and the water, I got the water in the sink in the kitchen working, and there's some buckets I found in there, and there's some lye, and here's some, brushes that, have, you don't have to get on your hands and knees, but got poles on them, and they had metal bristles so you could like really clean the crud. And I said, here, you start scrubbing everything, and I'm going to go look for a hose and I'm gonna put a hose tap on the valve, because I found a hose tap that will screw on to the plumbing part there, and so we will have a hose so we can hose things down, right? So she's lying away, and I go and I find a hose and make it so it's not leaky, and I put the hose valve on the water line, and everything's like sudsed up, and we wash the whole place out and wash it out into the living room, out into the front door, and out onto the front porch, and out onto the ground, right? And the whole time that I'm hosing things out, she's scrubbing. And so Sensei's bathroom, Sensei's bedroom, the living room, the porch, and the kitchen, we have lied out, and but nobody else's bedrooms. And I said, I can honor my sensei, but the rest of those chuckleheads, they're going to have to, clean their own sty. And I said, but I've got to put it for us. And she goes, us? I said, yeah, us. You said you liked me. And she kind of started to giggle. And so I took her out to the barn, and there was a hayloft that was immaculate. Obviously, somebody had lived, the last person who really lived on this farm didn't live in that farmhouse, lived in this hayloft, because the floor was not full of hay, and it was cleaned and linseed oiled and sealed. Had a nice rug on it, nice kind of you know Persian rug. I mean, probably not real Persian, but knockoff. It had a really nice metal bed, and the mattress was pretty good. And now there was two beds up there, and I dragged the best one down the stairs, and we dragged it in and put it into Sensei's bedroom. And there was another rug that I found, and you know we cleaned that off, and still the other 8 chuckleheads were still rolling. Oh, what am I doing here? Who's in charge? And they didn't even see me and Judy working away. But since he's standing right over there, 4 hours have gone by, and he's realized, okay, those are the 2 of my students. The rest, I don't know about these guys. So we kind of, the dark 30 is coming, and there had been a garden there, so there were a few straggly tomatoes and lots of berries, um, and so we went in the kitchen and did an extra cleaning of the kitchen and the pots and pans and utensils that we could realized that we were going to use those to cook, and we kind of tried to think about how to make the stove work, and that wasn't going to happen that day anyway. And it was still kind of warm, so we made a salad, right, with fruit and and tomatoes and greens. That she was quite the herbalist, Judy was, and so she knew what things to go up in the. She found a basket and a pair of scissors, and she's the one who taught me how to do that. And she went out there and clipped all the greens that were edible, right, and so she washed them off, and she did different. She like pickled them, and there's pickling processes you can do that you don't have to let them ferment, but it changes their acid, right, and their base, and makes them sweet or bitter. And she was really good at turning those things she clipped in the forest into something pretty savory and tasty, and then mix them with the other stuff. She was quite the chef. And I'm a good chef too, but she was a different kind. So we actually made a good team when it got down to chefing. So anyway, so we make a meal, and I invite Sensei in, and we cleaned off the main table, and we found a big beautiful kind of pottery jug, and we filled it up with water, and I had found a nice glass, 5 gallon, kind of glass thing that they used in water things where you put it in, turn it upside down, and go glug glug glug, and then you could get water out of it. They actually have one of those things. So I filled it up with water, and there was a stream. I stuck it in the stream like relatively soon as I found all of that, so we could have cold water to drink, right? So I filled up the pottery thing and put it there, and had a glass for. So I basically had plates and stuff that need to be cleaned. They were kind of on the counter. I cleaned off the stuff for Sensei, Judy, and me, right? See, they had been there now 6 hours. They didn't even look into the farmhouse. They didn't look anywhere. They just complained about everything and sat under a tree and ate stuff that they had brought with them. They hadn't like offered it to Sensei or Judy or me, who were doing all this work. And anyway, so we're in there eating, and they come in and they go, why don't you join us? And because we had this big bowl of greens, and the guy said, so where'd you get that? And Judy said, well, we picked it from the forest. He goes, how do you know that won't kill you? And Sensei said, these two are my adepts. You two, you six, have to prove yourselves. You're not even Padawans. And I mean, that's actually a term. It's not just something Lucas thought up. Virtually everything in Star Wars is true. But don't take my word for it. Go read Joseph Campbell. Anyway, so um, so that was our first night there, right? And the next night, I mean, early in the morning, I went. The guys were, they didn't eat anything, and they didn't even go look for a place to sleep. So Judy and I went up into our little love nest, and we started being lovers. I mean, that was the first, day, and pretty much that was, the next 6 months. That's where we slept. Though, and not that is not true. Once winterish came, like around October, November, basically the next day, what happened? Judy, I got up early. I said to Sensei, so Sensei, I'm going to go into town. I mean, there are a ton of stuff that we need, and I'm going to look for people who we can build community and we can trade with. And he goes, good idea. Go with my blessing. Okay. We went with his blessing, and we went into town. And this is Putney, Vermont, and they have a place called the Co-op. And the first thing we did was we went to the head of coffee shop at the top. The co-op kind of, and it was like almost a farm goods kind of. It was like a barn on the ground floor, but it had all kinds of great stuff in it. But upstairs was the coffee shop restaurant where, everybody hung out who was cool. So we went up there, And by the time we got there, it was like 7:30. We got up with this before the sun. We were watching the stars, and then we saw Sensei out in the field that I had cleared. And he understood about the ticks and everything, so he only walked on, where I cut the grass. So, and he knew that I had done it for him, right? Pretty much everything I did, I didn't do for me or to look cool. I did it for all us, all our relations, but to serve my sensei. And he really got that. I mean, from the minute I got out of my car and we, said, the rest were like, "Who's this guy?" And I bowed to my sensei. That's my colonel told me all about this guy. So I then went and did my homework on Japan and what a sensei was and the culture of it all. And so I did all the honorable things of greeting. And so he kind of, okay, this guy's he's done his homework. He's trying. Then I went off and started fixing things and servicing the hambu. You know. Anyway, um, so we got up with the stars, not with the sun, with the stars. And what was beautiful about the barn, it was a hayloft, so there were these big doors that opened out towards the farmhouse and the main yard and the main meadow, and then the road that went out through the forest. So you could really see everything out that, you know. So our bed was here, and you could look just straight out there. So, we were sweet to each other for the first few hours, and we fell asleep in each other's arms. And then I woke up because this breeze was coming through the open, you know, hayloft door, which was quite large. It was two 6-foot doors. They were about 8 foot high, and they opened into the barn and tied off. So you could open the doors from the inside and tie them off on the inside. If they went out the other way, they were like 20 feet up in the air. It'd be a little tough to tie them off. They'd be bang, bang, bang. So anyway, we tied them off. We had a great view. We went to bed. The breeze was really beautiful, and it smelled unbelievable. And so we woke up to the stars, right? And actually, I woke up to her being horny, is really what I woke up to. But it was still starlight, not sunlight. So we didn't really consummate, and we didn't do anything. We just kind of snuggled and made each other feel good. And then we just sat there smiling um, and looked out. And I said, "Look," and you could see this almost bluish glow around Sensei. I said, "Look, there's Sensei." And she said, "Whoa, I've never seen that, a human being." And I said, "That's his field. We all have one. His is just so strong you can see it, without having to be a shaman." And so, and you guys too. I want you to try this little exercise. Put your hand in. You're looking at your computer screen, right? Put your hand in front of it, right, and then move it towards it. And there'll be a spot where your hand is kind of a dark shadow, but the screen is bright. But you will get to a certain place where you will see a line all around your hand, and that's your field. And the energetics of the LEDs of your screen are interacting with the field of your body. And so there's like my little square of me, and then there's the black line that says YouTube, and then there's the white toolbar, right? And so if you put your black hand, and you move it slowly up to where it is, cut in half by the black YouTube stripe and the white toolbar, that's when you really be able to see the field around you. But there was Sensei glowing away, and we're a good, I don't know, 150 yards, and he just kind of turned his head like this, and to make it known that we were in bed but looking at him. So we kind of threw on our shoes and shorts and went out, and we didn't say anything. We just stood on either side of him, and he started to step and sweep. He started to do not the total Tai Chi but the step and sweep. And he didn't say anything, but we could hear because he stepped and then he swept with his hand. He stepped with his foot and then swept. And we could hear in our conscious what that meant. He was teaching us without saying a word, saying how good of an adept we could be, right? How open we could be, how we could let our, suspend our disbelief, and how we could be part of that relationship of love's co-creation with our sensei and ourselves, and the respect, and that's what intent is: self-respect. So, we did that, and then um, there's this, the darkest is just before the dawn, and we stood and experienced that. This it kind of settled, and that's when, again, I didn't hear his voice, but I heard the story of what darkness is, and about, and in the beginning, all things were dark. And what is that? But, I understood scientifically dark, black, the color black is the presence of every frequency of light, right? And so the darkness of, the manufacturing of the universe was before anything happened, before that big bang, everything was there on every different frequency. And Sensei was, he was intensifying. He was letting us see that, because I don't think we would have noticed that darkness. And then out through the darkness came the Northern Lights. It was unbelievable. I've seen them before, but not like that. And not, you can see the Northern Lights in Vermont, but not like that. I mean, the only time I really saw the Northern Lights like that was in Canada and Alaska, and things like that. So anyway, we're watching this, and it's like, whoa. And it's like more or less in our consciousness, not so much in our optic nerves, because we get this sense of the three of us being joined, right? And then he basically, in his stepping and sweeping, he swept around and put his arms around us and smiled the most enchanting, beloved, graceful, kind smile that brought tears to our eyes, and bring tears to my eyes right now as I think of them. Anyway, so we then turn towards the Northern Lights in the dark of the darkness. Then we see the stars are swirling like straight out of Vincent van Gogh. And this is when we really, are like baptized, ordained, however you want to put it, to be sensei's adepts, And without a word, he didn't say anything to us. It was just the experience, right? So, he walked on into the kitchen, and we walked in there, and he had made tea. He actually figured out how to get the stove to work. I was like, boy, that's okay. I'm a smart technical guy, and my sensei has made made hot tea. And I then look at the stove, and the stove isn't working. So how did he make hot tea? Anyway, he goes, and how did I make hot tea? After I'm thinking to myself, how did he make? And he goes, it's all with intent. And he goes on about Jesus Christ and about how Jesus made miracles happen. And he said, it's most people pray as if they're like praying for the lottery. They want a gift. They want Christmas presents. They want, oh, I'm sick and dying. Oh, please, God, save me. Make me whole. And he goes, everyone can do miracles. Not a problem. Not hard. It's your intent. That's what Jesus knew. He whenever he walked in the room. I mean, that's why there's nothing. It's everything that talks about Jesus is an illusion. It's what the Romans wrote. And he's going on and on about all this. And anyway, he's pouring the tea and he's doing the tea, ceremony, right in front of us while he's talking about intent and history and all this stuff, which is kind of, you're not supposed to. But he's our sensei and we're his adept, so he can like bend the rules a little bit, right? So he's going through the whole thing and he's not explaining the tea ceremony. He's just doing it. And we are experiencing it through his intent. And I'm like, this is pretty interesting. I'm learning. I'm sensing that I'm getting it. And then Judy kind of holds my hand while this is going, and it's almost like we made this connection. And I can almost hear her voice. Like, are you experiencing the same thing I am experiencing? And she didn't say anything, and I just kind of looked at her like, I just heard your voice. And I say with my voice, I just heard your voice in my head. And Sensei, with his voice, said, yeah, me too. Anyway, so he gives us our tea, and we sit cross-legged in front of him. And it's still dark out there, right? And he has left one candle burning, flickering. And he goes, okay, we drink the tea. And he goes, here's another cup. And this one you're not going to drink. You're just going to breathe the aroma in and bring the warm vapors, as we're going to breathe that 20% in deep, and this will enable you to feel where this goes, instead of trying to what's going on. This vapor will be able to have you experience and kind of almost with a sensory way experiences, instead of having to just believe. And he goes, I don't want you to ever believe in anything. I want you to have faith in love's co-creation, because that's what everything is. That's what intent is. So we're like, okay, sounds pretty good to me. So we're doing this. We're meditating. We're going to state. I've been a meditator. I did TM. I worked for ESK. I bumped into the Indian guru, and he put me on planet Zephron, but nothing like this, because it was my intent, and I was totally there. I was like Buddha. I was awake, totally. So much I was part of Sensei, and I was part of Judy, and I was part of the farm, and I was part of everything, all our relations, even the chuckleheads, And so he goes, okay, you're now meditating, and now open your eyes and focus on the flame. Just look at the flame, nothing else, just the flame. You are the flame. And that's the same flame that is in your fireplace in your library of your Akashic record, the blue flame. So it was a white candle, but the freaking flame was blue. So we're looking at it, and what we're seeing is our shadow. In the reflection of the blue flame, we're seeing the shadow behind us flickering, right? We're seeing ourselves, the illusion of the cave. We're seeing it, I mean, it's like Plato was right there, And again, Judy's in my head. You seeing this? This is Plato's, and Sensei in our head goes, Judy, yes, you're right, but you don't have to, we're all experiencing this. It's not a big deal. Just go with the flow, girl. You're doing great, and this is in our head. And so we are watching this, and we're watching our shadow, and we're watching the blue flame, and it's all flickering. And so we are feeling love's co-creation, right? Totally. And what happens, so we lose sense of time and space, and we're going all over the universe in the blue flame, which is what you can do, in your sanctuary of your own choosing, through the fireplace. You go up through the chimney and go to anywhere in the universe. That's one of the transportation hubs. And so we're experiencing this, and then the sun rises. And what happens is the sunlight, we see the photonic light, because it's like when it's straight above you, it's like, microwave oven. When it's coming up, right over the top of the mountain, it's the longest frequency, and that is, it's cutting out everything except the photonic light. And so the sunlight wipes away our shadow, and we get to see who we truly are, because we are now totally awake. And, you know, so that was quite an interesting thing. So by the time we kind of came back to, you know, here, you know, he said, "Okay, that was good. Good first lesson. You guys did great. Now what's on your agenda?" And that's when I said, "We're going to go to town, and we're going to, look for people to trade with. We need a bunch of stuff, blah, blah, blah." And he said, "Okay, that sounds great. And I'll try to deal with the chuckle, with our brethren, right?" And so we went off to Putney, Vermont, and we went to the co-op, and we went upstairs to the thing, and they had a great, it was about 7:30, 8 o'clock by the time we got there, and they had biscuits and eggs, and we had a great, Vermont breakfast, eggs and bacon and biscuits and gravy and pancakes. Ooh, pancakes with all kinds of syrup and great coffee, right? So we have.
Get pissed.
So we had a.
Why'd you say that?
So we had a great breakfast, and then we, we're looking at the rest of the folks there, and we tried to, hey, how you doing? We're just new in town, and we're out at the Nebraskan farm. That place has been feral for like 30 years. What are you guys doing there? I said, well, we're starting a hambu. Oh, hambu, what's that? I said, well, we have a Japanese master who's teaching us to be senseis. What's a sensei? Oh, well, it's, understanding yourself and being in balance so you're not distracted. So you don't get distracted by the childish motifs of the material world. You don't get distracted by fear. You don't get distracted by self-doubt. You don't get distracted by what you think other people think about you, because that is irrelevant, What is important is your connection to love's co-creation. And I'm saying this stuff like it's coming, from Western Union through my head. And Judy's kind of looking at me like, yeah, that's it. And so these people kind of get around, and we start talking, and they're all interested in, theosophy and different alternative philosophies.
The summer of '69, but the literal summer of '69 when all the hippies were around.
Yes, I do.
You do?
Yep.
How old, or what were you doing back then? You're a teenager?
I was in Putney. The story that I'm telling you is the story of 1969.
Really?
Yep. Mm-hmm. So basically, I was.
I didn't hear any of that story. I was upstairs with the door closed,
mm-hmm.
and I was looking out the window, and I didn't take my medicine last night when I went to sleep, and I hardly get any sleep, and I drank way too much coffee, and I started looking for faces, and I could very clearly and vividly see these different faces, and I didn't know what it was. I'd see clearly distinct different faces, and I could kind of vaguely hear your voice talking on the phone or talking something down here, but I couldn't hear any of the words you said because the door was closed.
Yeah.
And I could vividly, clearly, not the colors necessarily vividly, but the way the faces looked like. I could see them out the window and see what their faces look like. There's like a girl. There was a girl watching who was kind of pretty, but looked like not quite a really Anglo nose, but pretty. and like kind of
Well,
attracted
all
to
those who
watching.
want to experience and understand more
And I
of,
was like afraid to like
can either listen to John.
and then there, but she's pretty. Like I was just watching her head in the leaves outside the window. I was watching her head out in the leaves outside the window, and then I was like fixated on Danica or something, and then like I saw her face later after seeing some other people, and it looked like she was sad, like I'm fixated on Danica. And then I saw some guy looked like he was holding a baby and looked like he was trying to act cool and he was kind of young, but like kind of creepy or something. And then a woman that may have been older, but in the thing it looked like she had a really young face. Then I saw you when you were really young.
Well, I'm going to say goodnight, gang.
Maybe it was 1969, and I saw it all out the window, like in the dark.
We have been hijacked. Talk to you tomorrow. I'll finish the story then.